Okay, great. So good to have you guys here again. And we're just going to look into Kubernetes and what Kubernetes is about. So it's pretty simple stuff for some of us, I know, but we'll still go over it anyways. I'm going to look at, introduction to Kubernetes. Then we'll build on that, right? I can't hear GD's voice, but I'm sure you can hear us. If you can hear us, you can just type in the chat. But whilst that's going on, so I'll just share my screen. So we'll just look at a few things quickly. I don't have slides, so I'm not sharing slides. Forgive me. Okay. Can you see my screen clearly? Okay. All right. So, let's start from here. Kubernetes. I don't need to tell us what Kubernetes is. We already know what Kubernetes is. But the aim of these sessions, right, is to get us hands-on with Kubernetes, and possibly begin to look into, other things that we can get, from Kubernetes. For instance, certifications, right? Maybe also becoming Kubernetes experts, in the community, where you can begin to, help people in the community, in the Kubernetes community, do stuff, fix, or resolve issues, even contribute to Kubernetes, the project itself, or the ecosystem, the cloud native ecosystem. All right. So that would be my own desire to see. In fact, one of the things I want to do, right, is to help more people become ambassadors, CNCF ambassadors. And also I'm very interested in Africa. So I often do things, around the African scenery. So I'm looking for, people who are trying to get involved in the cloud native space in Africa and, things like that. So you find me, looking out for people who are in cloud native, DevOps, things like that, in Nigeria and across Africa. So it would be nice. Currently, we have 5. Let me just share something with us. Right. We have.
Yeah. Don't go to Play Store.
Please, can you just
I can hear you.
Can you just mute your mic? If you have a question, you can ask, of course, but I think that was a background noise. So currently we have 5 ambassadors from Africa, all right, in the CNCF. Now, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. You can just unmute yourself. I'm not looking at the chat. You can unmute yourself and just signify. Yeah. But so we have 5 ambassadors in the CNCF. 3 of us from Nigeria and the other 2 from South Africa. And compared to other places, other continents, for instance, Asia Pacific, you have 81. If you go to Europe, you have 67. You go to the Americas, you'd find North America 47. And so on and so forth. South America 5, which is also pretty low. My own interest is to get cloud native going in Africa. So having webinars or seminars around cloud native technologies is something I'm actively involved in and trying to do. So thank you for signing up for this, for joining these sessions. And of course, the Cloud Native Foundation is in charge of the Kubernetes project. which is, what we're trying to look at today. So yeah, speaking about the certification, the CKA, this Certified Kubernetes Administrator certificate or certification. This one, I got this certification, for those people who already follow me on Twitter, they would have seen me post about Kubernetes a lot of times. So yeah, I have this certification, and we are just going to try to see. And for me, I try to think of how to run these sessions, right? And I think a good way would be to just follow, what they have maybe you can call it their guide or their curriculum, what the certification covers or what the certification deals with. For instance, we have, these competencies, we have storage, we have troubleshooting, we have workloads and scheduling, we have, the cluster architecture, installation and configuration, services, and networking. Sorry about the background noise. Some school folks are just walking by my gate. I'm pretty close to the entrance. All right, but yeah, these are things that we would like to, talk about. For instance, when we're talking about storage, let's look at, storage classes and PVs, persistent volumes. Then we're talking about workloads. Let's understand, how to do a rollback. Let's understand config maps and secrets. When we're talking about services and networking, let's look at load balancer. Let's actually do hands-on stuff, right? Those are things that would make sense. Then, of course, troubleshooting as well. We'll definitely hit roadblocks and we'll try to fix things as we go along. But I think it's nice. It's nicer to, follow a guide. For me, when I was learning Kubernetes, I used codecloud.com by Momshad, and it was very, very it was a very good resource. It is still a very good resource, to learn Kubernetes, and the cost there borders around the certification itself. So that's why I think it's good to go that route. But yeah, don't forget, if you have any questions, please ask of me. I'm just going to go to my terminal. Let's see.
Yes, hello, Larry.
Yeah, I hear you clearly.
Okay, so can we ask now, or we should wait till you're done?
Definitely should.
Okay, so I think of recent, I was looking into this Kubernetes certification. One of them have to do with CKA, and the other one have to do with CKAD.
Okay.
I have some little understanding of Kubernetes. I've done some couple of operations with Kubernetes. So what I was actually looking towards on was no more of the basic or the introductive aspects. I needed more practical aspects or more. Let me use this route. I'm more familiar with AWS environment where their certification comes from practitioner, then moving to a solution architect, and having to compare the two together. I realize now that practitioner have to cover most of introductive of what they actually provision or the services that they render, while the solution architect has to do more of with practical aspects, building some projects, having some solution being provisioned, or like looking at the basic or the resources that they actually sells or they actually use. So I needed something related to that solution architect. And when I spoke to a friend, he said I shouldn't go through the route of CKAD. I should do CKA. That CKA has more content. So I don't want my content to look like the cloud practitioner. So I'm not really after the certification. I just want to be aware of all the operations that it can actually provision with Kubernetes. So whether I'm using it now or I'm going to use it later will be something we discuss later, but it's something that I just want to be aware of, that you can actually do this, and it can lead to me provisioning this solution because I'm aware that I can do this on this particular thing. So not more of like, I know this resources is available on this particular platform. I don't know whether you understand.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So you want to move from the practitioner to the, associate level, right?
Exactly.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, well, so the CK, you mentioned the CKA, which is, I deliberately opened the CKA for that reason. Now, the CKAD is targeted towards developers, right? Not administrators. Developers wouldn't need to administer in Kubernetes clusters. So that I get why that person must have told you, to focus on the CKA rather than CKAD. The CKAD is for developers, and developers are building, cloud native applications, and that's what that's what that certification tries to, help them with. But for the administrator, you're tearing down clusters, creating clusters, you are configuring network and all of those kind of things. So yeah, it's more in depth in terms of working with Kubernetes itself. That said, sorry, there's just over my house. Yeah, okay. So that said, I think learning Kubernetes, like you have said, you need hands-on experience, which is what we're going to be dealing with. And I hope you find it helpful, really. So yeah, this is the exam. If anybody doesn't know what Mr. Balogun was saying there, this is the certification is referring to the solutions architect, AWS solutions architect associate. Well, yeah, so you can have a look at this later on. But thank you for that, for letting me know where you're at and what you need. I don't know if anybody has any concern, any question, any comment, any feedback. Anybody else? So we've got where is my screen? So we've got okay, yeah, I see Chika, I see Jude as well. But all right, I think that's fine. Okay, nobody has a question. So I'll just share another screen. Let's see. Okay. Let's go. So this is my terminal. Now, of course, you want to start with Kubernetes. There are several things you need to, first of all, install onto your computer. The first thing is, now I'm not going in a particular order to say, okay, first of all, go and set up a cluster, or I'm just, for this first session, we're not going with any particular order, but you need to install several things on your computer first, to get started with Kubernetes. And the first thing I do is, I install kubectl. Kubectl is a command line tool spelled this way. Some people pronounce it as kubectl, cube, whatever, but I call it kubectl because that's how I learned it first. Yeah, so you install kubectl. So I have kubectl installed on my computer. Sorry, kubectl version. Yeah, so when you do this and you get, yeah, ignore the warning, but I could just do what they say here. Sure. So you get, the version of kubectl that you have installed. I currently have, version 1.27.1, and of course customize, which comes with that tool as well. I have that installed on my computer. But now you have kubectl. Kubectl is the tool that allows you interact with Kubernetes. It's more like, for those of us who use what's it called, Terraform, for instance, you install Terraform CLI, command line tool, and it allows you interact with, the cloud providers or the, various providers where you begin to provision infrastructure, on top. So the kubectl tool is also a tool that allows you to interact with Kubernetes clusters. All right, and so I have this kubectl tool installed. And another thing I do is I use aliases. So I'm going to share. I wish I could share two screens at once. I'm going to share another screen. And I'll just show you what I do to set up my to start with. If I get a cube, if I want to just let me just show you. So I use this stuff called cube aliases by this guy. He used to be, I think he's no longer a Google engineer, but yeah, he built this tool, Ahmed, and it's called cube aliases. And so you can just set this up on your, okay, let me just take you to, I always, like to use the official documentation. So if you go to Kubernetes, or if you just Google kubectl, it should take you to the Kubernetes documentation itself. Yeah, so you can install on Mac, on Linux, and whatnot. So I have it installed, kubectl. You can read what it does here, but you interact with Kubernetes clusters with kubectl. Then also I just use these cube aliases, which you can just set up on your computer. There's an installation guide there. I use ZSH, Z-shell, and this is, where is it? This is fish, this is bash, and ZSH. So I use ZSH, and I just have all of this configured on my computer. So that allows me to do things like this. I'm going back to my terminal, sorry. That allows me to do things like this. So when I do K, essentially what kubaliases does is it does maybe alias, you can say maybe king equals kubectl.
Sorry, Larry.
Yeah.
Just a quick one.
Mhm.
I think we're already going to the technical aspects. I wanted to make mention of one of the things you mentioned when we started was
You can-
being
Sure.
ambassador of clouds.
Yeah.
Yes, so I wanted to ask, how did you what is actually required? Because it doesn't seem like it's a community that somebody can just come because you have this experience or that experience, and yeah, voila, you're good, you're in. So what does it require? So what and what are we supposed to do to become or to get to that kind of position or to be in that kind of community?
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. You just took us away from looking at kubectl, but that's fine. So I'll just open the ambassadorship page.
I'm very sorry for that. I don't want to
No,
bring us back
that's
when we are
fine.
totally done with our program.
Yeah, that's fine. So this is the ambassadors website, cncf.io/people/ambassadors. And if you look on there, I think it's at the bottom, I'm not so sure. Let's quickly see. I think it's somewhere. Oh, I guess this is just the information about the ambassadors that we currently have. Okay, well, you could just do CNCF ambassadors application. Okay, this should be it. Yeah, so they've got the requirements /ambassadors/application process. You've got responsibilities and requirements, for folks who want to join. First of all, you must, of course, be 18 years and above. You must be willing to sign this, thing here, which is simply this is pretty straightforward. It says you must participate in at least one of the following areas, be an active contributor. For me, right, I meet this criteria. I did this as well. Then I was a contributor, I applied as a contributor to a CNCF project. All right. In the past, I've contributed to Kubernetes, and I've also contributed to a CNCF project called External Secrets Operator. All right. And Kubernetes, when I say Kubernetes, I'm not referring to something very, very big. I've contributed documentation, right? And I think it was just maybe, I can't remember what it is, but I've contributed documentation to Kubernetes docs. So I make this. So you can contribute to Kubernetes, look for documentation. And it doesn't have to be Kubernetes, it can be any, what's it called? Any cloud native, any CNCF project, right? So I contributed to this one, external secret operator. Please, can you mute? I contributed to ESO as well as Kubernetes. And so I make this criteria. I'm not a SIG or TAG member. TAG is, I think, it's Technical Advisory Group. Then SIG is Special Interest Group. There are different SIGs, Kubernetes SIGs. There is if you check the Kubernetes CNCF Slack channel, you can find the different SIGs. There's SIGs for security. I think there's for storage, for network, special interest groups. Essentially, that's what it means. I'm not a SIG or TAG member. Also, I think I met this criteria, this one and this one. So you must participate in at least one of these three. So I'm also, I'm involved in the community. I've organized events, I'm KCD organizer. Back then it used to be KCD Africa, but now it's KCD Nigeria. So I'm co-organizer of that one. I've spoken at events, several events. I've spoken about Kubernetes, about ESO. I mentor others, which is similar to what we're doing right now. So you can do something like this as well, right? Then also I create content. So I fall into this. So that's the basic requirements. Then I don't know if I've answered your question, right? Even though there are people who I know who, also meet this criteria, but that doesn't mean you automatically become a member, right? They would vet your application, read your responses to the application, and it's quite, I think it's competitive. You're not the only one applying. There are thousands of other people who are applying, and there's probably just maybe there's a select number of people that can be picked per should I say cohort or something like that. And yeah, if your application makes it through, you become an ambassador. But yeah, so that's it. That's how it goes. So for the ambassadors yeah, there used to be, Abu was an ambassador last year. He's also co-organizer of KCD. Uche, a friend as well, was also an ambassador last year, but he's no longer an ambassador this year. Oh wow. How come I'm not seeing Abu here? Oh, okay. Abu is African, but I think he's not resident in Africa. Maybe that's why. Because I don't see him. That it just occurred to me that he isn't here. Wow. Well, this is a revelation because I've always been saying 5 ambassadors, but we have more than 5. But that's good to see. So Abu is also co-organizer of KCD Africa or KCD Nigeria now. But yeah, that's it. So the 5 ambassadors, some of us might know Didi. There's also Ari. I've met Ari, of course, virtually. Then there's me, there's Luke. I've met Luke. Luke is also he's got a YouTube page which is doing very well. I enjoy, his explanation. Sorry, there's another plane above my house. Yeah, so Luke is also a very good, teacher on Kubernetes and cloud native. Then there's Obina. I know Obina. I used to be in an Andela community at ELC Microsoft. Obina was part of that one. I think Obina Bakari back then. Then, yeah, I think that was when I first met Obina. But yeah, so I know these folks, but my own, goal, or one of the things I want to do is one of the things I want to see, well, I may not really want to do it, but I would like to see more Africans here on this page. That means, championing cloud native adoption, development, and growth in Africa. So, please, if you're following me, if you're learning from me, I want you to aim very big, aim very high, and try to be on this if you can. You don't have to be here to champion cloud native, but it's just a good recognition. Of course, there's some benefits to it as well. But yeah, you know the drill. Just do what you've seen in the requirements and apply. But for me, I didn't start out by saying I want to become a Kubernetes or a cloud native ambassador. I didn't start out with that. In fact, by the time I started with Kubernetes, I didn't know that there was something called CNCF ambassador, right? I was just very interested in Kubernetes. I loved Kubernetes. I still do. And I began to, just do things that I was doing. And I saw that, oh, there's an ambassador. So like somebody said, like a fellow ambassador said, it's, what's it called? Like a fellow ambassador said, this is like an official, becoming an ambassador is it's just an official title to who you already are. All right, that means you should already be an ambassador without the title. If you're not an ambassador without the title, then you can't be an ambassador with the title, because they're making you an ambassador because you are already an ambassador. Right, so it's not like when you apply, you now become the ambassador. No, this is just like an official recognition. I don't know if that makes sense to you, right? So for instance, Luke was already, advocating for Kubernetes and Kubernetes technologies. He's even got a t-shirt here. All right, just kidding. But yeah, Didi was already doing likewise, Obina, same as well, and of course I was doing same. I believe Ari as well was doing the same. And when we applied, we just showed, oh, this is what I've been doing, 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 and they just officially recognized us. But yeah, it's a good thing to have. Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you very much, Larry, for that.
Okay, good to hear, good to hear. All right, so I'll go back to my. Does anybody have any question before we proceed? Anybody? Nobody? Okay, let me go back to my terminal. So I said, when you install kubectl allows you to interact with Kubernetes clusters. So what I do is I also set up kube aliases, right? And I just was trying to explain what aliases look like. So when you put, for instance, I alias this as this, it means if I do king on my CLI, on my command line, so king represents kubectl, right? So for instance, if I do king version, it gives me it responds like kubectl. All right, so that's what kube aliases does for you. It helps you to set several aliases. So for instance, what it does is it allows you to alias k as kubectl. So kubectl is my k. So if I do k version, or if I say k version short, this is kubectl. Now I can do things like kgpo, which is to get pods. Ignore all of these errors for now. I can do things like let's see, I'm not sure. It don't bring anything, but I can do, kubectl cluster info. So that's what I use kube aliases for. Then of course, the other thing you want to do is you want to get a cluster that you can begin to play around with. So there are different ways you can set up a Kubernetes cluster. What I do, what you can do is you can use Minikube, all right? Install Minikube on your computer. It allows you to create a non-production ready cluster. You can also use Kind. If you're using if you have Docker Desktop installed on your computer, Docker Desktop can give you a Kubernetes cluster. Also, if you have Kind, you can install Kind. Kind also can give you a Kubernetes cluster. So I don't have Minikube. I'm not sure if I do, but I have Docker Desktop and I have Kind. So, for instance, if this starts to run, I can just come here and click on Kubernetes. But, 1 second I'll just use Kind. Let's just use Kind. So I have Kind. Let's see. Yeah, I have Kind installed, and I can just do this to get help. I can create a cluster. This allows you to create a cluster, so I can do Kind create. Let's see, cluster. Kind create cluster. Then I need to pass a name, of course. Oh, it just uses the default name Kind. So it creates a cluster for me. Let's see that. Okay, good. So I can do Kind get, I believe, let's see. No, Kind plus, let's just check. Always use the help. Like, why store everything in your head when you can just always check? So Kind get clusters. Yeah, so I have this cluster Kind. So then now I can do kubectl cluster info. Yep. So this is my cluster. It just gives me the info of my cluster. Earlier on I was having some errors. Yeah, but this is what I have and works fine. So I'm going to send another link because this one is already expiring, right? I'm on the free version of Zoom, so pardon me. So I'm going to send another link now. So if you don't mind, I'll stop sharing here.